He dropped his car keys on the counter like nothing had happened. 6 days. 6 whole days of silence, no texts, no calls, nothing. And now he was standing there, wearing that smug little smile. "Miss me?" Jake said, reaching for a beer. That was the moment I realized something inside me had snapped. The sound of the fridge door opening felt louder than it should have. The cold air brushed my bare arms, and I swear my heart started pounding in my ears. I just stood there, frozen, trying to process the audacity of the man I married. 6 days. He left on a Tuesday morning, saying he was going to help a friend with a work emergency in Houston. I believed him, because that's what you do when you love someone. You trust. You give them the benefit of the doubt. You don't assume they're lying through their teeth while you sit at home checking your phone like a fool every hour. When I asked him why he didn't call, he shrugged. "Bad service," he said. "Bad service for 6 days?" I shot back. He chuckled. "You're being dramatic, Melissa." He had this way of making me feel small, like every emotional reaction I had was an overreaction. It was subtle, but it chipped away at me over time. That night, I went to bed early. Not because I was tired. I couldn't have slept even if I wanted to, but because I didn't want him to see the tears pooling in my eyes. I didn't want to give him the satisfaction of knowing he'd broken me again. I used to think our marriage was solid. We'd been together for 5 years, married for 2. We had plans, buying a house, maybe starting a family next year. I even turned down a promotion because Jake said it would stress me out too much. Looking back, that's when I started losing little pieces of myself. The next morning, he acted normal. Made coffee. Hummed while scrolling through his phone. I caught a glimpse of a message preview. A woman's name I didn't recognize. He tilted the screen slightly away when he noticed me looking. "Work stuff," he muttered. I wanted to believe him. God, I really did. But something inside me, that quiet, tired voice I'd ignored for years, whispered he's lying. That day, while he was in the shower, I picked up his phone. Locked. Changed passcode. He'd never changed it before. My hands trembled. I wasn't the snooping type. But 6 days of silence and a new passcode? That wasn't normal. When he came out, I pretended nothing happened. I smiled. Cooked dinner. Listened to him talk about catching up on work. Every word out of his mouth made me feel sick. That night, as he slept soundly beside me, I stared at the ceiling and realized something. I'd spent years being afraid to lose him. But maybe it was time he started fearing what it would feel like to lose me. I didn't know how yet. But I knew I was done being the one who cried while he lied. And by the time the sun came up, I had made up my mind. I was going to find out where he really went. He had no idea what was coming. The next morning, I waited for Jake to leave for work before I moved. My hands were shaking as I poured coffee, but my mind was sharper than it had been in months. He kissed my cheek before walking out the door, like nothing was wrong. The same man who'd disappeared for nearly a week without a single call. The moment his car turned the corner, I went straight to the closet. I remembered he had packed a small black duffel bag before that work trip. It was still on the top shelf, unzipped. Inside, I found a few receipts, one from a gas station 2 towns over, another from a hotel in Austin. Not Houston. Austin. My stomach dropped. Austin was where she lived. Her name was Rebecca. She used to work with Jake years ago. I'd met her once at a company party, tall, overly friendly, the kind of woman who called other women hun, while looking them up and down. I never liked her, but I never said anything. I trusted Jake. I sat down on the edge of the bed and stared at the receipt. My first instinct was denial. Maybe he had business there. Maybe the hotel was for a client meeting. But then I noticed the date, 3 nights in the middle of those missing 6 days. It wasn't business. That night, Jake came home late. I didn't ask where he was. I smiled, served dinner, and listened to him talk about the crazy workload. But something in his tone had changed, too casual, too confident. He thought I was still the naive wife who waited by the phone. The next day, I called in sick. I told my boss I had a migraine, then packed my own bag and drove to Austin. 3 hours of silence, just me, the road, and a playlist that used to remind me of better days. When I reached the hotel, I didn't know what I was expecting. To see him walk out with her. To find some proof that would make it all make sense. The woman at the front desk smiled. "Welcome back, Mrs. Carter." I froze. He had used my name. I forced a smile. "Actually, could you print me the receipt from our last stay?" My husband misplaced it. She nodded and printed it. Room 214. 2 guests. 1 king bed. That was enough. I didn't need pictures or phone records. That single piece of paper burned through my palm like fire. Driving back home, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just felt hollow, like all the love, anger, and sadness had drained out of me. But somewhere in that emptiness, something new started to form. Resolve. When I got home, Jake was in the living room watching TV. He didn't even look up when I walked past. "You okay?" he asked, half distracted. "I'm fine," I said. And I meant it, because I was done being his fool. That night, I started a new routine. When he slept, I wrote everything down: dates, receipts, lies, every detail. I created a folder labeled insurance. Not for money, for truth. Over the next few days, I began to observe him like a stranger. His phone habits, sudden work calls, random absences. Every move he made told me more than his words ever could. He had no idea that while he was building his lies, I was quietly building my case. And soon, when the time was right, he'd find out what it feels like to lose control. 2 weeks passed, and Jake had no clue I knew. He'd kiss my forehead before work, text me fake updates during the day, and smile like he was living 2 perfect lives. One with me and one with her. I played along. Every morning, I packed his lunch, just like always. Every night, I'd delete my search history, private investigator websites, legal forums, even Reddit threads about hidden affairs. It sounds crazy, but when you've been lied to for that long, information becomes oxygen. One night, while folding laundry, his phone buzzed. He was in the shower. I froze for half a second before grabbing it. The screen lit up, Rebecca Kissmark. My breath caught. I didn't even have to open it. That stupid emoji said everything. I waited until he left for work the next morning, then took his old iPad out of the drawer. He'd forgotten it existed. Or maybe he assumed I didn't know it still synced with his phone. But I did. I turned it on, logged into his iCloud, and waited. Within seconds, the messages appeared. Hundreds of them. Flirty texts, inside jokes. "Miss you already, S," and then photos. Her in a hotel robe. Him shirtless. My stomach churned, but I kept scrolling. I needed to see the truth, no matter how much it hurt. He had written things to her that he hadn't said to me in years. Things about feeling alive again, about finally being with someone who gets me. At one point, I actually laughed. It wasn't out of humor, it was disbelief. I'd been paying half the mortgage, doing his laundry, making sure his mom got her meds. And this man was out there playing soulmates with someone who barely knew how he took his coffee. I took screenshots of everything, sent them to myself, then deleted the sent messages. By noon, I had a digital folder that could destroy his entire little fantasy world. But revenge wasn't the plan, not yet. I wanted precision, not chaos. That night, I watched him eat dinner. The same man who swore vows to me now sat across the table, tapping away on his phone under the table, pretending to check work emails. He caught me looking and smirked. "What?" he said. "Nothing," I replied. "Just thinking." If he noticed the edge in my tone, he didn't care. Jake always believed he was the smartest person in the room. That arrogance was going to be my weapon. Over the next few days, I started acting distant, but not suspiciously so. I'd nod instead of argue, let him win small fights, laugh at his dull jokes. Meanwhile, I called an attorney. Not to file yet, just to understand my options. When I told the lawyer about the messages, the hotel receipts, and the synced iPad, he said something that made me pause. "You're already halfway there. Now it's about timing." I started documenting everything, his pay slips, shared accounts, his schedule. I even began transferring small amounts of money into a private savings account I opened quietly under my maiden name. Because if Jake thought I'd be the crying wife begging him to stay, he was in for a surprise. By the time I finished preparing that envelope, the one he'd soon find, every piece of evidence would be inside, neat and undeniable. But first, I needed to push him just a little more. Make him confident. Let him think he'd completely fooled me. Because the best revenge isn't loud. It's patient. The shift in me was subtle, almost invisible if you weren't looking for it. I stopped asking questions. I stopped waiting for explanations. I stopped caring out loud. Jake took it as surrender. He came home later and later, sometimes past midnight, smelling like cologne that wasn't his. When I asked if he'd eaten, he'd wave his hand and mumble, "Yeah, grabbed something on the way." He didn't even try anymore. Perfect. The less he cared, the more space I had to plan. At work, I'd sit through meetings pretending to take notes, but my mind was mapping out my next move. I started gathering copies of everything. Our joint account statements, mortgage documents, car registrations. I I scanned them all and stored them in a hidden drive under a folder labeled Tax Records 2022. One evening, while Jake was in the shower, I checked his jacket pocket. Another hotel receipt, same Austin address, different date. He'd gone again. He hadn't even bothered to make up a story this time. It didn't sting like before. Now it just confirmed what I already knew. The man I married was gone. That night, while he scrolled through his phone, I sat beside him with my laptop open. I pretended to browse Pinterest while quietly sending myself every screenshot, photo, and receipt I'd collected. Then I printed everything at work the next day. One copy for me, one for my lawyer. By the time Friday came, I was calm. Cold, even. Jake called from work and said he'd be gone for the weekend on another trip. I smiled into the phone. That's fine. Be safe. He paused, maybe thrown off by my tone. You're not mad? He asked. No, I said softly. Why would I be? The silence on his end told me he didn't trust it, but his ego won. Good, he said. I'll see you Sunday night. The second the call ended, I got to work. I cleaned the house, changed the sheets, cooked dinner, normal things. But then I opened the drawer and pulled out a plain white envelope. Inside, I placed copies of his messages with Rebecca Kissmark, the hotel receipts with both names, the photo of them together he thought he'd deleted from his iCloud. I sealed it shut and wrote on the front, for when you come home. It wasn't meant to destroy him instantly. It was meant to break his illusion. Over the weekend, I stayed busy. Met with a friend who happened to be a realtor, just asking about market trends. Checked in with my lawyer about joint assets, and quietly moved a few more thousand into my new account. On Sunday around 9 p.m., I heard his car pull into the driveway. My heartbeat didn't spike this time. I just waited. He walked in, dropped his bag, and smiled that same fake smile. Hey, you look nice, he said. Missed me? I looked at him for a moment, then pointed to the envelope on the table. You left something for yourself. He frowned, confused. Picked it up. What's this? Just open it. He laughed, a short, cocky laugh, and tore it open. The moment his eyes scanned the first page, the color drained from his face. He didn't say a word for 30 seconds. Then he looked up at me, mouth slightly open. Where did you get this? I folded my arms. Does it matter? He tried to compose himself, running a hand through his hair, eyes darting between me and the papers. Melissa, this isn't what it looks like. Oh, it's not? I asked quietly. Because it looks like you forgot who you were married to. He dropped the papers on the table. His arrogance cracked for the first time. That's when I smiled, small, deliberate. Don't worry, Jake. I'm not yelling. I'm not throwing things. I'm just done. And as I walked past him, I could feel it, that quiet, heavy power that comes when you stop begging for respect and start taking it. He followed me down the hallway like a shadow that had lost its shape. Melissa, please. Let's just talk, he said, his voice shaky but trying to sound calm. I stopped halfway to the bedroom and turned around. Talk. Now you want to talk. For the first time in months, I looked at him, really looked at him. His shirt still had faint wrinkles from being stuffed in that overnight bag. His hair smelled faintly of her perfume. He couldn't even hide it anymore. You lied, I said quietly. You lied every single day while I cooked your meals, paid half the bills, and believed your excuses. He sighed, pacing. You're overreacting. It was just complicated. You don't understand how stressed I've been. That line. That pathetic line. I'd heard it 100 times before. I crossed my arms. You were so stressed you needed a hotel in Austin? Or was that part of your therapy too? His jaw clenched. You went through my stuff? I went through my husband's truth, I said sharply. Big difference. He laughed suddenly, bitter, defensive. You think you're perfect? You've been distant for months, Melissa. You're cold. You don't even. Don't, I interrupted. My voice didn't rise, but it hit him harder than yelling could have. Don't you dare try to turn this on me. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The only sound was the faint hum of the refrigerator from the kitchen. Then, slowly, I walked closer and set another document on the table, the consultation receipt from my lawyer. His eyes widened. What's this? It's a notice, I said calmly. You have until the end of the month to pack your things and move out. I'm filing for divorce. Wait, what? You're kidding. I shook my head. No, I was kidding when I believed you loved me. This, I pointed at the envelope. This is reality. He ran both hands over his face, pacing again. Melissa, you can't just, you don't know what you're doing. We can fix this. Fix? I almost laughed. You can't fix a house when you've already burned it down. He started pleading then, his tone softening, words tumbling fast. It was a mistake, okay? I messed up. I swear I ended it. I was just lost, and she made me feel alive. I cut in. Yeah, I read that part. He froze, realizing how much I knew. I gave you everything, Jake, I continued, my voice shaking slightly now, not from fear but release. 5 years of my life. My loyalty, my patience, my forgiveness. And you turned it into your backup plan. He tried to reach for me, but I stepped back. Don't touch me. Something in my tone must have hit him, because he stopped. His shoulders slumped, his eyes darting everywhere but at me. Then he whispered, almost like a confession. So that's it? You're really ending it. I nodded. I already did. I turned away, but before I walked out, I said one last thing, quiet, steady, final. Don't worry about me, Jake. You taught me how to survive without you. He stood there in silence as I closed the bedroom door behind me. That night, I packed a suitcase and slept at my sister's place. I didn't cry. I didn't even replay the argument. All I could think about was how calm it felt to finally stop waiting for him to choose me. The next morning, I woke up early, made myself coffee, and stared out the window as the sun came up. The fear was gone. The weakness gone. In its place was something I hadn't felt in years, freedom. But Jake wasn't done yet. He thought he could still manipulate me. And that's when the real game began. I thought the silence would scare him. But it didn't. It only made him bold. 2 days after I left, Jake started calling nonstop. First it was guilt. Melissa, please, I can't sleep, I miss you. Then it turned to anger. You're being dramatic, you'll regret this. And finally, desperation. Let's just talk one last time. I didn't answer. Not once. He showed up at my sister's house on the 4th day. The doorbell rang at 9 p.m. I peeked through the curtains. There he was, standing on the porch with that fake, pitiful expression he'd always used when he wanted forgiveness. I opened the door halfway. You have 5 minutes. He looked tired. Maybe it was real, or maybe it was another act. Melissa, he started. I can't lose you. It's over with Rebecca. I swear. It was stupid, meaningless. I let him talk. I didn't interrupt. I wanted to hear every excuse, every lie he'd rehearsed. When he finally stopped, I tilted my head. You done? He blinked. I'm trying here. Trying to do what? I asked. Rewrite the story? Make me forget what you did. He sighed. I made a mistake. People make mistakes. You can't just erase everything we had because of one bad decision. One bad decision? I laughed softly. Jake, you didn't trip and fall into a hotel room 3 times. You planned it. Lied. Repeated it. That's not a mistake. That's a pattern. He went silent. Then he tried another tactic, the one that always used to work. You still love me. I can see it. You wouldn't be this angry if you didn't. I looked at him and said, I'm not angry anymore. That's when I saw it, the flicker of panic in his eyes. He realized he didn't have control over me anymore. I just want us to be okay, he muttered. We can start over. I stepped aside slightly. You should go, before I call someone to make you. He hesitated, then finally turned and walked down the steps. As he got into his car, I said quietly, check your mailbox tomorrow. He froze but didn't respond. That night, I mailed another envelope, not evidence this time, but consequences. Inside were copies of our joint account transfers, along with the letter from my lawyer notifying him that I'd initiated proceedings to split the assets. Everything was clean, documented, legal. No drama. No shouting. The next morning, I blocked his number. But through mutual friends, I heard he'd started spinning stories, telling people I was unstable, that I'd overreacted. Classic. I didn't defend myself. I didn't need to, because truth has a way of revealing itself, quietly but completely. When he realized I wasn't fighting back publicly, that no one believed his victim act anymore, he started losing it. Calling mutual friends. Showing up at places he thought I'd be. One evening, he cornered me in the parking lot outside my office. You ruined my life, he hissed. You're making me look like the bad guy. I met his gaze. Jake, you did that all by yourself. He stepped closer. You think you're better than me now? No, I said calmly. I just finally remembered who I was before you made me forget. Something broke in him then. He didn't yell. He just stared, like he didn't recognize me anymore. And maybe he didn't, because the woman who used to cry over him was gone. That night, I wrote a single sentence in my journal. Power isn't about revenge. It's about walking away and watching them crumble under their own lies. But the story wasn't over yet, because there was one final piece of unfinished business, something that would close this chapter completely. The last envelope. A month had passed since I'd left Jake, but the ghost of him still lingered. His cologne on an old jacket, his name on mail I hadn't changed yet, the quiet moments in the morning when I'd almost forget, and then remember. The divorce papers were in motion. My lawyer said things were going smoothly. Still, I wanted closure. Not the emotional kind, but the kind that ends all questions. That's when I decided on the final envelope. It wasn't out of spite. It wasn't even revenge anymore. It was clarity, the final act that would show him, and myself, that I was done being part of his mess. I gathered everything one last time. The hotel receipts, the messages, the photos, all the proof I'd used to protect myself legally. I made a second copy, sealed it in a new envelope, and labeled it, "To whom it may concern," if you're wondering why he lost everything. It wasn't for him this time. It was for his company. Jake worked for a small but prestigious real estate firm. Family-owned, old-school values, very public about their integrity. The same firm that had sent him on all those business trips. I knew they had a strict ethics policy about fraternization during travel, especially with former employees. I didn't need to ruin him. I just needed the truth to reach the right desk. That Friday, I sent it anonymously. No return address, no note, just the evidence. Then I let go. For the first time in months, I slept soundly. No checking my phone. No imagining his next move. Just quiet. The following week, I got a call from an unknown number. I didn't answer. A few minutes later, a voicemail came through. It was Jake. His voice sounded tight, angry, desperate. "Melissa, I know what you did. They suspended me. I could lose my job. You had no right." I deleted it halfway through. No right? After everything he'd taken from me, my peace, my trust, my confidence, I had every right to defend what little was left. 2 days later, a friend texted me. He's moving out of the apartment. Says he's going to stay with his brother for a while. I didn't respond. That evening, I took a long walk through the neighborhood, breathing in the cool air. It was strange, how light everything felt now. The anger was gone. The fear was gone. What remained was a calm certainty that I had done exactly what needed to be done. When I got back home, I made myself tea and opened my laptop. My lawyer had emailed. "Final draft of the settlement ready for your signature." Reading through it, I smiled, not because of what I'd gained, but because I had finally stopped losing myself. I signed the papers and sent them back. The next morning, I received one last text from Jake, from a different number. "You win. Happy now." I stared at it for a long moment before typing back. "I didn't win, Jake. I just stopped playing." Then I blocked that number too. That night, I took the last envelope, the first one, the one he opened on our kitchen table, and burned it. Not out of rage, but as a goodbye ritual. Watching those pages curl into ashes felt symbolic. The lies, the pain, the endless pretending, all of it dissolved in front of me. For the first time in years, I wasn't anyone's wife. I wasn't a victim. I was just me. But something unexpected happened after that, something that would test my peace one last time. Because the next morning, someone knocked on my door. And when I opened it, it wasn't Jake. When I opened the door, a woman stood there, early 30s, long brown hair, tired eyes. She looked nothing like the confident, flirtatious woman I'd seen in the photos. "Melissa," she asked quietly. I didn't answer right away. My grip tightened on the doorframe. "Who's asking?" She swallowed hard. "I'm Rebecca." For a few seconds, all I could hear was the faint hum of cars outside and my own pulse in my ears. "I know you probably don't want to see me," she continued, voice trembling. "But I needed to tell you something." I didn't invite her in, but I didn't slam the door either. "You've got 1 minute." She nodded, eyes glassy. "He told me you were separated, that the marriage was basically over." I believed him. I crossed my arms. "And that justified sleeping with him?" She looked down. "No, it didn't. I was stupid. I thought he was different. But after the last few weeks, I realized he was using me the same way he used you." It was strange hearing her say that. I wanted to hate her, to tell her to leave and never come back. But there was something raw in her expression. Not pride, not arrogance, just regret. "He lost his job," she went on. "He showed up at my place drunk 2 nights ago, yelling about you, blaming me, everyone. I called the cops. He's not the same man I met. I almost said he never was. But I didn't." She handed me a small envelope. He left this with me before he went off the rails. Said it was for you. I didn't want to give it to you, but maybe it'll help you close this. I hesitated, then took it. You can leave now. She nodded. I'm sorry, Melissa. For everything. When I closed the door, I stood there staring at the envelope. My hands didn't shake this time. I sat at the kitchen table, the same table where I'd confronted him, and opened it. Inside was a single piece of paper. You were right. I don't deserve you. I don't deserve anything. I'm sorry for everything. Don't pity me. Just forget I existed. No signature. Just his handwriting, sloppy, rushed, full of guilt that came far too late. I read it once, then folded it neatly and placed it in the drawer. I didn't burn it. Not because it mattered, but because it didn't. That evening, I took a long bath, lit a candle, and let the silence fill the room. No phone buzzing. No explanations to prepare. No pretending. Just peace. It hit me then, how small my world had become when I was with him. Every thought, every action, every decision had revolved around keeping him calm, keeping him happy. And in doing that, I disappeared. But not anymore. I started new routines, morning walks, cooking for myself, laughing with my sister again. I began saving for a solo trip, something I'd always wanted to do, but never had time for. I even painted again, something I hadn't done since college. A few weeks later, the divorce was finalized. My lawyer called to confirm, and for a moment, I just sat there in silence, letting it sink in. It didn't feel like loss. It felt like air returning to lungs that had forgotten how to breathe. I went to the window and watched the sunlight spill across the street. My reflection in the glass looked different. Not sad, not angry, just alive. I whispered to myself, almost like a promise. I lost him, but I found myself. And I meant every word. If you were in my shoes, what would you have done? Let me know below. And don't forget to follow for more real stories like this.